Hello and welcome. This is Nick
I'm Jackson.
I'm Bills Mafia News.
from Top Notch Sports, and today this is the current state of the Buffalo Bills. The Bills were 13-3 in the 2022 NFL season, but they ultimately lost in the divisional round to the Cincinnati Bengals. They finished first in the AFC East, and they were trying to make a push to that Super Bowl ring that they've wanted now for the last few seasons. They have their franchise quarterback in Josh Allen. This guy is a consistent MVP candidate. And this year, once again, they're going to try to go all the way with Josh Allen and head coach Sean McDermott. The Buffalo Bills are currently 4-2. This is the current state of the Buffalo Bills. Currently, the Buffalo Bills are 4-2 to start the season, and there are 11 games remaining. Jackson, starting off the year 4-2 with 11 games left, what do you think about these first 6 games that they've played?
Yeah, look, the Buffalo Bills, they've played, in my opinion, really, really good football these first 6 games to start the year. Obviously, the first game against the New York Jets was a tough one, especially with Aaron Rodgers going out. You would like to have that one. The loss against the Jaguars as well. Watching that game, it looked like the Bills were just coming out a little slow, maybe getting into London. I think they got there to London on a Friday, if I'm not mistaken, which I thought was really stupid. So they came out really slow, but I don't really hold that loss against them. But the 4 other games they've played, I thought they played really good football. Against the Raiders and the Commanders, I know they were scoring a lot of points. And then the game against the Dolphins, they were just coming off a 70-point game, so that's a really good win for them as well. So 4-2, Bills are in a really good spot, and they're first place in their division.
Yeah, I'll mention this. Okay, 4-2 to start the year looks really good. The thing that is kind of concerning to me is this. They're 4-2. They lost to the Jets week 1 with Zach Wilson, which again, that shouldn't have happened. They beat the Raiders, which you know my feelings with the Las Vegas Raiders right now. I'm not a huge fan of them. The Commanders are another team that have had their ups and downs. The Jaguars, they lose in London, which again, I do give them a pass there as well. I really didn't like the decision to get there last minute. Jacksonville was there for 2 weeks. They were ready to go. And then they ultimately win against the New York Giants. Again, another team that's not that great. When you look at the wins, they've been against teams that have not been great. The one game that I will say that was a great showing from this Bills team was against the Miami Dolphins. They absolutely play phenomenal. Now, the thing is this. They don't play them until the last week of the season. And by that point, Jalen Ramsey will most likely already be back and going full speed. So they'll have their team ready. The Bills are a little bit injured. And the next slide, we'll look at their depth chart. So we're going to go there right now to see what the Buffalo Bills are currently dealing with. Let's get there right now. All right, Bills Mafia. Here's my question to you. You put this amazing slide together. Looking at this depth chart, how are you feeling?
To be honest, with everything that's gone on, just from like an injury standpoint this season, I still really like the roster we have. You can obviously see here, like our defense has had some tough losses, like with Milano, Trey White, and Daquan Jones. But guys are filling in and doing their job. Like Dorian Williams, he has been missing a couple tackles, but it's kind of like the reason he's missing the tackles is almost a good reason. It's just because he's like all over the field. He's always playing full speed, which is what you love to see from him. I think as the season goes on, he'll fit in the defense better and hopefully just develops to, play just good linebacker, with Terrell Bernard, who's also a guy who stepped up in like huge in his position this year. People were kind of concerned about our middle linebacker since Tremaine Edmonds leaving, but Terrell Bernard has quickly, gotten rid of all the doubts people had. As for our corners, Trey White obviously is just brutal coming off the ACL tear from 2 years ago. He just got back last year. He was still kind of slow last year, just getting back onto the field because it looked like he was hesitant to gain an injury again last year. And then this year, a couple weeks in, and he tears his Achilles. So it's just like, I don't know, tough luck there. But I like the guys that we do have backing up. Like Christian Benford is an absolute steal in last year's draft. He's been playing great for us. I believe in the 5th or 6th round we got him, and he's been easily our second best corner right now. Dane Jackson, also very just solid corner. He can fill in when we need him. Now, a big talking point is Kyer Elam. Obviously, we took him last year in the first round. He's had a bit of a rough year this year, but last year he played great. I personally think a lot of it is just, he's not necessarily a scheme fit. So the other guys playing ahead of him are corners that just fit the scheme better, and Elam hasn't really adjusted fully yet. And then he's losing confidence because he was benched for the guys ahead of him. So he just didn't have a great first game this season against the Jaguars and Calvin Ridley and whatnot. But he did look a lot better last week against the Giants. There was a couple plays that weren't great, but overall it was definitely an improvement from the Jags game. And I just hope he can develop a bit better and doesn't lose too much confidence. Just looking at the offensive side of the ball, our O-line is massively improved from years prior. Deion Dawkins is looking good. Mitch Morse is still solid as always. Spencer Brown has definitely looked a lot better. He's can be quite inconsistent at times, but this year has been easily probably his best start to a season so far. And the very big addition, Osiris Torrance, he's doing amazing for us. We got him towards the end of the second round this year, and I just couldn't be happier with him. He's pretty much won the guard spot straight out of the draft and has just been playing amazing for us. Weapons wise for Josh Allen, obviously we got Kincaid this year in the first round. Haven't used him too much. I don't know if it's just because they're trying to keep him either a bit hidden in our offense so people don't know what to expect later in the season from him, or if it's just they don't want to rush him out there because he's a rookie. Either way, I think our tight ends are doing fine. Like Dawson Knox looks pretty good. I do wish we would use Kincaid a bit more, but I don't know what their game plan is with Kincaid going forward. So we'll just have to see what happens there. As for Diggs, still looks like Diggs out there, always doing good. He has I think 5 games with 100 receiving yards this season already, maybe 4. And that's out of 6 weeks. So that's something you just love to see from Diggs, is the consistency. He's helping this team heavily. Gabe Davis has also looked pretty solid. I do think there's always room for him to improve, on route running and stuff, but I do think overall he's looked pretty good. And an interesting spot this year is the slot wide receiver. I think we've been using kind of Deontay Hardy a little bit differently this year, just in screen passes and whatnot. I do like the addition of the guys we have. I do like how we've seen a bit of Khalil Shakir. He did catch a touchdown a few weeks ago. I do wish we'd use him a bit more maybe, but I do also think just in general, the slot should be used a little bit more in the pass game, because right now a lot of it is relying on Diggs and Davis or Dawson Knox. So I would love to get the slot a bit more involved. And as for the run game, I loved everything about James Cook so far. His only real, bad performance was against the Jaguars. There was no run game at all that week. Allen was the leading rusher with 14 yards, so it just did not go well for us that week. But yeah, as a whole, I am still pretty confident in this team. I do think McDermott calling the defensive play this year is just it's greatly benefited our defense. It's not to say Leslie Frazier was terrible. I just don't think he was aggressive enough on defense. And I love our defensive line depth.
Yeah. I mean, you look at this team, it's a solid team still on paper. There are some injuries, right? The Milano injury is going to hurt. Tre'Davious White's injury is going to hurt. But you look at the offense, Diggs, Davis, Dawson Knox, Kincaid, James Cook. As you mentioned, Deontay Hardy's looked pretty good this season. I still was a huge fan of Khalil Shakir. Spencer Brown I liked a lot coming out of the college. Cyrus Torrance I was a huge fan of. Ed Oliver on the defensive line. Gregory Rousseau coming off the edge. Von Miller coming. This is a solid team. This is still a solid team. And with McDermott, I think he can make this team compete, and get to the playoffs easily, right? I mean, they're going to make the playoffs. The question is, how far is this team going to go? And that's what we're going to try to go and talk about for the remaining part of this video. So let's keep this thing pushing. Currently, the Buffalo Bills are 4-2. There are 4 favorable. This is what our model's projecting. There's 4 favorable games on the schedule, 0 unfavorable games, and 7 toss-up games. Now, again, our model is an analytical model that runs a lot of numbers, data, and statistics. Thanks to our pal Noah the Hube Thompson for making that for us. Math major, big into computer engineering and all that stuff. Game design. He's able to run these numbers and crunch that data for us. And he's able to make this amazing model that we're going to use at Top Notch Sports now for years to come. So, according to his model, there are 4 favorable games, 0 unfavorable games, and 7 toss-up games. So now, real fast, Jackson, looking at this schedule, right? I mean, again, the reason why there's 0 unfavorable games is because the Bills, honestly, truly are just a team that's going to be better than or equal to most teams on their schedule. So, when you look at this as the remaining games, how are you feeling?
Yeah, when you're a team like the Buffalo Bills and they're constantly in contention to making a Super Bowl every year, they're gonna have 0 unfavorable games more than likely, and they're gonna be in every single one of the games that they play in. Like I say this every time, the 7 toss-ups is really important. 4 favorable wins, you can pop that in instantly if you wanted to. That puts them at 8-2, and then the 7 toss-up games, meaning, they don't have to, win. They can win necessarily less than half of those games and win 3 of them and be at 11 wins, and they'd be in a good spot to make the playoffs. So, like I say, every time the 7 toss-up wins or toss-up games, excuse me, is really huge. But looking at the schedule just for, there's going to be a lot of very good teams that they do play down the stretch. Cincinnati is looking like they might have figured things out. They're getting healthier. They're going to play the 2 teams that were in the Super Bowl last year back to back, and the bye week's going to be in between those 2 games. And then they played teams like the Cowboys, the Chargers, and the Dolphins later at the end of the season. So they have a very, very difficult schedule coming up.
Yeah, and again, you look at this 4, favorable games. You can punch them in as wins, like you said. You're at 8, but that's if they take care of business. That's if they can take care of a team like the Jets. That was a favorable game to start the year once Zach Wilson went down. That's if they can take care of a team like the Jacksonville Jaguars, possibly. I think the Jaguars are one of the best teams in the National Football League. So again, I'm not going to knock them on that. But you're going looking forward. We got 4 favorable games. We'll break them down in a moment. But in those games, those are the ones that they're going to have to win. So let's keep this thing pushing and break down the 4 favorable games. Their current record is 4-2. There are 4 favorable games. These are defined as the New England game, the Tampa Bay game, the Denver game, and New England again. Okay, they got New England twice. Bills, when you look at New England, okay, they're kind of falling off. These are 2 must-win games. Do you think they hold any threat at all to honestly beating the Bills?
I mean, it is a divisional game. Almost any divisional game, like in any division in the league, is going to have some sort of toughness to it just because you play these guys every year, twice a year. But I do think they've just looked like the worst they've looked in a very long time this year. So at the end of the day, there's always it's still the NFL. There's always a chance you could lose one of these games, but I just think the Bills just have to go in. They can't play down to the Patriots level. They just have to get on top and just kind of keep pounding them like they did with the Commanders and Raiders. So you just can't let your guard down against the Patriots. So
yeah, no, again, that's exactly right. And I mean, again, Jackson, when you look at these 4 games, these are kind of, these are the easiest games you got, and again, 4 favorable doesn't mean that you have to win all 4. Maybe you win 3 of the 4, but you got to win the majority of these games, which I think the Bills will do. But again, if you do go 2-2 in these 4 games, which I don't see happening, but if it does happen, and then you got those toss-up games, you don't know what's going to happen with those 7 toss-up games. So again, how important is it for these, for the Bills to take care of business with these 4 games?
sorry.
It's very important that they take care of business in these games. If they lose, I would say honestly, if they lose one of these games, they're going to be in a very tough spot, in my opinion, because if, like you said, you look at the schedule, they play very tough teams down the stretch, so they could very well, lose, more than a few of those toss-up games, and if they, lose one of these favorable games, it's going to put them in a very bad spot.
Yeah, the main thing's going to happen too is that can the Buffalo Bills remain healthy for the rest of the season, considering they already have a few injuries? Bills, what were you going to say before?
Yeah, so I just think, if it's important to win all 4 of these games, especially with the amount of tough games we have down the stretch. So I just think kind of making sure you can guarantee these 4 would be beneficial for, your playoff chances.
Absolutely. All right, now let's move on to the next one. The Bills are 4-2 currently. We have 0 lists unfavorable games. So, hey, I mean, Jackson, real fast, I'll just let you touch on this. 0 unfavorable games. Now, we are going to make a lot of these videos. There's not going to be a lot of teams with 0 unfavorable games. How important is that for the Bills?
That actually is more important than you might think, because say they do, lose a game that they aren't expected to lose. That's just like we said earlier, like it's going to put them in a really bad spot. At least, like I was saying earlier, it's going to put them in a bad spot. So 0 unfavorable, again, that's just saying like these guys, they have to take care of business.
Yeah, and again, for the model and stuff to predict this, I mean, most teams, right? And we're going to go right over here at Cincinnati. That would be unfavorable for most teams, but not this team. At Philadelphia, most teams, that's an unfavorable game, not for this team. At Kansas City, that's an unfavorable game for most teams, not this team. And we can go right down the list. The thing is this, right? It's not that they're unfavorable. It doesn't mean that they're going to win those games, but they're going to be able to compete in those games. And again, 90% of the league is not going to be able to compete on the road against really good teams like that. But the Buffalo Bills have the ability to compete. And again, it's going to really come down to if this team can stay healthy, because if they continue to lose pieces, it's going to get more and more difficult for a team like this. So let's keep this thing pushing. We're going to now look at the toss-up games. They're currently 4-2. There are 7 toss-up games, and they are the game in Cincinnati, the New York Jets, the Philadelphia Eagles, Kansas City Chiefs, Dallas Cowboys, the LA Chargers, the Miami Dolphins. Jackson, real fast, these 7 games, like you said, these are going to be the ones that it's going to come down to whether or not this team finishes first in the AFC East, whether or not this team, makes it to the Super Bowl this year, because they're, seeding in the playoffs. What do you think about these 7 games? These are really, really important football games, and are going to be really fun to watch games.
Yeah, these are going to be very fun games to watch, and they're also going to be very competitive down to the wire. It's a very tough stretch. And honestly, this is one of the tougher stretches I've seen when we've been doing these videos. Look, like I said, it's going to be important that they take at least 3 of these games, because if we're just going to go ahead and pencil the 4 favorable games, that puts them at 8. Taking 3 of these would put them at 11. But even taking 3 of these games is going to be very difficult, just because how good these teams are. They're playing teams that, like I said, the 2 teams that were in the Super Bowl last year. They're playing one of the AFC Championship teams last year. LA Chargers, very high-powered offensive team. Dallas Cowboys, always tough team. And then week 18, they're going to be playing the Miami Dolphins, and that game could very well be for the division title. So they're going to have to, really get in check. This team's injured, and it's going to be tough for them to do it. But if anyone can do it, I think it's Josh Allen. He's a very good quarterback, and it's going to be important that they rattle off at least 3 of these games.
Bills, how are you feeling?
So this is definitely a tough stretch of games, but I would rather they come towards the end of the season, because if you can beat teams like this towards the end of the season and carry your momentum into the playoffs, that's what I'd want. I would say, just out of the games that are here, the ones that are probably, like, I guess you could say most likely or more favorable in our opinion, is probably the Jets and the Chargers. And that's only the Chargers only because their coaching has been a bit poor. I like the Chargers, despite the fact that, they are in the same conference. We might meet them in the playoffs, but I just think their coaching is not doing it for them. So if they don't get something fixed, I think there's potential there to hopefully, get away with a win there. And the Jets, again, without Rodgers, it's still a question mark. Obviously, we lost them week 1. Because I think they have a very good defense. You look at teams that the Jets have played, like with Mahomes and like Jalen Hurts, I believe, they were giving the QBs and the offenses a hard time, because that Jets defense is a very good defense. So just overall here, like when you have Cincinnati, again, like Jackson said, the 2 Super Bowl teams in Philadelphia and Kansas City, and Dallas, who always is very good, especially in the regular season, and Miami again to end the season. And we don't know if our team can stay healthy and like where the standings are going to be for the AFC East for week 18. So it's definitely going to be a tough stretch, but again, I think if we can stay healthy and as long as we got Josh Allen and everyone, I think there's always a chance that we can come away with these wins.
Here we go. Predicted record. We got them going 7-2 to start with 7 games remaining. And here are the games. Okay. So, Jackson, real fast, mention these first 4 games that we're predicting here.
Yeah, the first 2 off the bat are the games against the Patriots and the Buccaneers, and those are 2 of the favorable games. And us as analysts, we came to the conclusion that those would be wins for the Buffalo Bills. Going to the game against the Cincinnati Bengals against it's going to be a away game for the Bills. Too close to call, and we're going to come back to that one at the end. Then we got the game against the Broncos, which is another favorable game at home for the Buffalo Bills. Us as analysts came to the conclusion that would be a W for the Bills as well, putting their record at 7-2, 7 games left to predict.
Yeah. So again, look, there's 7 games left on the schedule with 1 too close to call right now. Bills real fast. I mean, you go on a 3, you win 3 of the 4, at least as of now. We don't know what they're going to do against Cincinnati. Looking into that, starting off the year 7-2, that's a pretty solid record. You got to agree.
Yeah. I definitely think too, just with the Bengals game, that will definitely be a competitive game. And I think a lot of it too just depends on how the Bengals are, going to be rolling by that point, because we know they've had a bit of a rough start early on with Joe Burrow being hurt, and even just like T. Higgins, I think, has had some injuries. So I guess we'll see once we get to that point, but it should be a good game.
All right. So currently we're at 7-2 with 7 games remaining on the schedule. Let's see the next 4 games. We got them going 9-2 after the next 4. With 3 games remaining on the schedule, here's how we have those 4 games going. Jackson, go ahead, break it down.
Yeah, look, first game here is going to be against the New York Jets. Look, it's a very different teams from week 1, obviously. Zach Wilson's still going to be probably honing down the quarterback position for the Jets. But the Bills are probably going to, they're going to learn some things. They're going to be ready to go into this game. So we think they get the W at home. Game against the Eagles and the Chiefs, with the bye in between, we thought those games were too close to call. We'll come back to those at the end. And then we have the game against the Cowboys at home for the Buffalo Bills. We have that as a W for the Bills as well.
Look, the one thing I will mention is that Dallas, to me, has been one of those teams that have been very streaky, too. I just don't think they're legit. I mean, they're a good, tough football team. But again, if the Buffalo Bills take care of business, I feel like that would be a win for them. The Jets game, again, I wouldn't say it's necessarily favorable. The Jets have a really good defense, and they showed that they could beat the Bills in week 1. I don't think it's going to happen again. We ultimately go with a win. But that Eagles and Chiefs game, 2 back-to-back games, that is huge. Especially, look, again, we pretty much know the Bills are going to make the playoffs, especially starting the season 9-2 with 3 too close to call a game so far. But the thing is, playoff seeding and where are they going to finish in the AFC East, all that is still yet to be decided. Let's keep this thing pushing real fast as we go to the final 3 games. We got them going 10-2 with 0 games remaining, and we still got many too close to call games to cover. Real fast, though, Jackson, break down these 3 games.
Yeah, we got 2 more too close to call games. So we're going to have a lot to come back to at the end. And then another game against the Patriots that was one of the favorable games. So we have them taking all 4 of the favorable games, and then that's putting their record at 10-2 with no games left to predict other than the ones that we have to come back to.
All right, so Bills, real fast, looking on that big column with all those question marks, again, 10-2 is looking great, right? We didn't predict a single loss yet to this point because we feel like it's much easier to predict the Bills winning. But when you look at these games, I mean, look, you win half of those question marks, right? How many do we got? We got what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So you win 3 of those, you go 13-4, which is great. You win 2 of those, you would go 12 and 5. What are we thinking here? I mean, either way, no matter what, 10 wins, you make the playoffs. But I mean, at this point, what do you think you guys should do, or how do you think this shakes up ultimately?
Well, I definitely think you should be aiming to get probably at least 2 or 3 of those as wins if you want to be in like your best like spot entering to the playoffs. But again, those are going to be tough games. So I just think you have to play your best football, come away with the wins you can get, just again, coming back to injuries, just hopefully we can stay healthy throughout the remaining of the end of the season here. And just come away with some wins against these tough teams.
All right, let's see how we have it shaken out. We're going to look at the final games. With 0 games remaining, oh boy, Jackson, go ahead, break this down.
Yeah, so with the 5 question mark games, we have them losing 4 of those games, starting off with the Cincinnati Bengals going to Cincinnati, Ohio. We have that one as a L for the Buffalo Bills. Look, that's gonna be a really tough game. The Bengals are getting healthy. They're getting it back on the right track, and I think the Bills, excuse me, are gonna be playing them at a wrong time. The Eagles and the Chiefs, look, those are again 2 teams that are gonna be in Super Bowl contention for sure. Um, when it comes down to it, they're just going to be able to get the job done. The Bills are injured, and I think the Chiefs and the Eagles are they're going to be they have more depth that the Bills are going to have, and there's when it comes down to crunch time, they're just going to be able to get the job done. The game against the Chargers, that's going to be a very huge game for the Bills to win. It's honestly a big time swing game that us as analysts we really did actually have a tough time coming to a conclusion of. That's going to be a big time swing game, and we came to the conclusion that the Bills are going to get the W there. And then the game against the Dolphins, that very well probably will be for the division title. Um, if the Bills can't win that game, as we don't have them winning that game, they're probably not going to win the division. So with those games being predicted, the record, as we said, is going to be 11-6. No games remaining to predict.
Bills, what are you thinking with this outlook?
Well, obviously, I don't want to see us get 4 of these losses and only one of them wins. But again, it's not necessarily an unfair valuation because these are good teams and they could easily go either way. Again, just going back to it, another thing is just injuries. I think going through the season, if we can stay healthy and not lose more people than we already have, I think obviously it helps our chances of winning these games. But if we can't stay healthy, it just makes these games a lot harder. So I think, yes, a big key to finishing out our season is just staying healthy as a team.
Yes, and we're going to keep this thing moving real fast. One thing I will mention is you do see the streakiness. 3 wins, we got a loss, 3 wins, a loss, 2 wins, 2 losses, 3 wins, a loss. The thing about this is about the Buffalo Bills is this exactly. This team has the capability of winning a lot of games, but to predict the rest of the season right now from all the injuries that this team has suffered, it's tough to do. And trying to beat these good teams with the current situation of the team, it's tough to say that they're going to beat Super Bowl contending teams with as many injuries as they have. So, all right, here we go. So we have the officially predicted record at 11-6. Our top-notch sports model, analytical model, is projecting the absolute floor. The worst the Buffalo Bills will do this season is 10-7. The top-notch sports model is projecting them to go 12-5 with an absolute ceiling of 15-2. Now, that is crazy. That might be one of the highest we've seen. Jackson, what do you think of this first? I mean, floor, likeliness, the highest ceiling. Again, these are absolute floors, absolute ceilings. If everything went perfectly right and everything went horribly wrong, this is a really, good-looking model for the Bills.
No, yeah, this is exactly what I want to see if I'm a Bills fan. 4 of 10-7 is great. If you're 4 of 10-7, you're really really solid team. So that means they're probably going to make it playoffs. Which is good thing if you're a Bills fan. 12-5, 11-6. What we have 11-6. 12-5 though, seems very doable. For this Bills team, and then like we said, 15-2 is just ridiculous. Everything would have to just go perfect, and then the way the season's gone for the Bills so far, I don't know if that is gonna be perfect season for them.
Bills, what are you thinking?
No, yeah, I definitely I like the outlook for the rest of the season. I would be very happy to, just be 12-5 to end the season. If we went 10-7, I wouldn't necessarily be disappointed, but we could definitely do a lot better than that. And again, 15-2, that would just be like a miracle. So I don't know. I mean, if it did happen, that's great, but I just don't necessarily see us going undefeated the rest of the year. But I guess we'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah, again, this is absolutely. I have not seen something this ridiculous yet, but again, if this thing somehow gets to 12-5 right, which is projecting, I may have to retire and just promote this model that we've created. So that's that. That's what we got. Absolute floor, absolute ceiling. They have us off by 1 game. They're projecting. I'm saying they're as if this thing's a living thing, but the analytical model that we've created is projecting a 12-5 record. We are projecting an 11-6 record as analysts. Now let's go into our final segment. Currently, the Buffalo Bills are 4-2. We have them finishing 7-4 in the final 11 games and finishing with a record of 11-6. Jackson, final thoughts on the Buffalo Bills?
Yeah, they got a long road ahead and a lot of very tough games that are going to be played, but they're going to be very enjoyable games too. So, it's going to be a fun end of the season going into November and December for the Buffalo Bills, and they should be a fun team to watch.
Bills, final thoughts on your Bills?
Yeah, I definitely think, it's going to be a tough ending to the season, like Jackson said, but it should be entertaining. We should have close games, and hopefully we can pull off a lot of wins from the final stretch of the season.
Yeah, again, 7-4 in the final 11 really is not bad. I know it doesn't look great, but again, 11-6 record is very good. Here's what we got. Our final prediction for the Buffalo Bills is finishing with a record of 11-6, finishing second in the AFC East, easily making the divisional round. But if they stack a few wins, it is possible that this team could make a Super Bowl appearance. So one more time, here's our final prediction. The Buffalo Bills finish with a record of 11-6, second in the AFC East, easily making the divisional round. But if they are able to stack a few wins, this team can easily make a Super Bowl appearance. This is the current state of the Buffalo Bills. We'll see you guys soon. Peace. We are
Built better.
See you guys soon. Peace.
180. 180, set.
Hehehehe